Alright, what's going on, man? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ron, and before we get into anything today, I just want to let you guys know I took down the Geist jersey. You know, a long time I've had signed Geist jersey back there. And after the news of his domestic violence and getting booted off the Washington football team, I just can't be letting that bang in the back of my videos. I don't even feel good about having that jersey up off camera. You know what I mean? It's just not a good look. I thought he had great potential. I hope this news is false, but just wanted to bring that up. Now we just got a fake T-Mac jersey back there. If you got any jersey recommendations, I want to get a new signed one for the back. Let me know down in the comments. While you're there, subscribe, like. Let me know what's going on, man. Today we got my high floor players for 2020. These are guys going in the early to middle rounds that I think have the lowest potential to bust. They're very safe picks, and that's important in those first 5 to 6 rounds when you're trying to establish consistency. So let's not waste your time. Let's not waste my time. Let's go. All right, now first up we got Mark Andrews going off the board at the 310 as the tight end 3 off the board. He feels extremely high, and I'm going to go into that in a second. Or he feels like he doesn't feel extremely high. He feels like an extreme high floor player because of what he did last year. I'll get into that in a second. But he is diabetic, so he's at high risk for COVID-19. But as long as he opts into play, I don't think that it affects his floor at all. As I've said in previous videos, I'm not putting too much stock into the whole COVID-19, who's at risk, who's not at risk, who's already had it. I'm not going to give myself the headache of all that stuff. So assuming that he doesn't opt out and he plays, in my mind, barring physical injury, he's playing a full 16-game season. Now, in 2019, we all know what the Ravens did. They balled the fuck out. Lamar Jackson, Viper glasses on the sideline. He's throwing the football, but making fun of people for calling him a running back. They went crazy last year. And with that in mind, Mark Andrews also went crazy. He finished with the most touchdowns among tight ends with 10. He was 7th in receptions and 5th in yards among tight ends. Now, the catches and yards don't feel too crazy because, you know, they're both outside the top 5. Like, what does that really mean? But in the context of his snap share, that's insane. He was only on the field for 43.2% of snaps last year. That was the 67th among tight end. He was literally he was on the sideline, stepped foot on the field for a few plays, caught a touchdown or a big break, and then he came back, and then he waited for Lamar Jackson to come off the field with him, and they just bowled into the next possession. Now, this kind of production, such a limited amount of snaps for Mark Andrews, means that he just went insane from an efficiency standpoint last year. He had the number 1 hog rate among tight ends, which accounts his target share given the amount of snaps that he had. And he also went crazy in other metrics. He was top 10 in yards per target. He was top 10 or better in yards per pass route, contested catch rate, and fantasy points per pass route. And he made the most of what he was given while also being the league's best deep threat. He wasn't just a touchdown threat with the 10 touchdowns, but he led the position in average depth of target and deep targets. So he's getting targets down the field. He's going crazy in the red zone. He's catching contested balls. He's doing everything he can in the limited amount of snaps he was given. And with that, he finishes the tight end 4 in points per game. I don't see how he finishes outside the top 5 with these kinds of metrics. And on top of that, Hayden Hurst, probably the main competition for him in terms of passing routes, had 39% snap share last year. And now he's gone. I think Mark Andrews is going to challenge for now after getting 46% or 43%. He's probably going to be in like the 60 to low 70 range. They still have Nick Boyle, who they love as a run blocking tight end. But I think this gives Mark Andrews a lot more time on the field and a lot more what do you want to say? Like a lot more attention and a lot more resources put towards him in terms of a pass catching threat. Now that Hayden Hurst isn't there and 12 personnel on their passing downs. Now the only threat that Mark Andrews has to compete with that's new this year is Devin Duvernay. He's a 3rd round receiver. He's fine, but he's not going to do anything crazy in year 1. He'll have probably around 40 to 60 targets, probably 40 to 60 targets. He's cool. He came out of Texas. I like him as a prospect, but he's nothing crazy. Mark Andrews feels like the 1A to Marquise Brown's 1B in this passing offense. And I think on top of you have to factor in last year they weren't even really a passing team like that. They were running the ball like crazy, and their defense was really nice. But they lost 4 defensive starters last year. They lost Marshall Yanda this year. Obviously, Ravens are going to ball out. They're going to go crazy, big trust, whatever, woo-woo. It's not going to be what it was last year. They're not going to have the same type of like borderline undefeated season. On any given snap last year, they were up by 6.93 points. That was like the top the best game script in terms of a positive spot. So when you have a positive game script, you're gonna run the ball a lot. So they had the top defense, and they ran the ball the most times last year on a per snap basis. This led them to finish dead last in pace of play, and I think we're gonna see this revert towards the mean a little bit now that Marshall Yonder are gone, the 4 defensive starters are gone. I think we're gonna see them scale back a little bit, maybe pass the ball a little bit more, and Mark Andrews should be getting on the field more in 2020. So he has a top tight end. He has a top 5 tight end floor with only around 40% of snaps, and with him looking to see an increase and the passing volume looking to get increased in 2020, look for him to challenge Kittle or Kelsey as that top tight end if he somehow produces his way into a top 75 into 75% or more in the snap share department. All right, next up we got Matt Ryan going off the board at the 7-11 as the QB8. Now that's a little bit farther back than what I was saying before, like the early to middle rounds, but he's going at the 304 in Superflex leagues. I don't know why I said leagues, but I gotta show my love to the Superflex guys out there. I'm myself in plenty of Superflex leagues, and I'm gonna start showing a little bit more love to that side of things, and maybe start mentioning more QBs. So we're gonna go with Matty Ice. I got way more respect for this guy after he said that he got his name Matty Ice from just drinking Natty Ice like back in high school, man. He's a fucking goon, but... And something that a lot of people don't realize about Natty Ice is that it just exudes class. He's also a stud. He's the definition of a high-floor quarterback and an Iron Man. He missed a game in 2019, but prior to that, he hasn't missed a regular season game since 2009. He also, in the last 9 seasons, has gone 4,000 yards every single time. He's pretty fucking consistent, man. The last 4 seasons, he's finished as the QB9, QB2, QB18, and QB2 in those seasons, averaging 19.2 points in that span, which would have been the QB8 last season. Now, he did have that one QB18 season, so what went wrong that season? Well, it was mainly his situation. He performed fine, but the team they were 10-6, and they had a top 10 defense in scoring and total yards. So Matt Ryan wasn't forced to pass the ball like he was last year. He only had the 20th most pass attempts, but in 2019, he led the league in pass attempts with 684, and he passed the ball in a league high 67.3% of plays, and should continue this in 2020. Now, when you look at his the strength of schedule that Warren Sharp provides, the Falcons are honestly fucked this year, man. They have the worst strength, the hardest schedule. According to Warren Sharp, he takes the Las Vegas win totals, and then he figures out who has the easiest and who has the hardest schedules. Falcons, dead last, and this means there's going to be plenty of negative game scripts, and they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, man. It's going to be a lot of games where they're down by a score or two, and Matty Ice has to come down and throw his ass off to try and make a fourth quarter comeback. It's going to be a lot of games like this. There's going to be a lot of domes in that NFC North Conference, and the Falcons' defense isn't doing him any favors either, man. They're the 27th worst defensive unit according to Mike Clay's unit projections, which are somewhere on Twitter or ESPN. Matt Ryan, he's had like an MVP season. He's been to a Super Bowl. We know he's a stud. We know that he is a solid quarterback with the ceiling of a MVP type quarterback. He could have one of those Russell Wilson type seasons where he's the only player who's good on his team, and he could also be just fine throwing the ball for over 4,000 yards, 650 attempts, and somewhere in the fringe 30 touchdown range. So that's his floor, which will be about QB10, but he has a ceiling of a top 3 quarterback. So he's a great floor play, and he might always have that one-off season where he lucks into an MVP season. I don't see it super likely because of the situation. Not going to be winning a lot of games, but the volume's going to be there for him to be a stable QB option in Superflex and even in redraft leagues where he's a value or in best ball leagues. All right, next up we got Calvin Ridley. He's going off the board at the 406 as the wide receiver 17. Now, early in the offseason, I wrote a whole-ass article on Player Profiler. It's called Why Calvin Ridley is This Year's Chris Godwin-Level Breakout Candidate. That'll be in the link down below. I go into his whole profile a lot more in detail than what I can do from me to you through a camera, you know what I mean? So, this is a guy, when he came out, the analytic community, we weren't really fucking with him. I honestly remember shitting on Calvin Ridley a little bit. I wasn't actually in the fantasy space. I've only been tweeting and making videos for the last 2-3 months. I remember when he came out, I was of the idea that DJ Moore was a much better prospect than him, and I still believe that, but I wasn't giving Calvin Ridley his due justice. Calvin Ridley in his own right is a great receiver. The boy, A.J. Brown, shout out to Bustin' with the Boys, no free shout outs. Calvin Ridley was in A.J. Brown's top 3 receivers in the league, and that's probably just because of like a route running thing. You know, receivers, they watch each other run routes. And Ridley, he earns that respect because he's been consistent in each of his first 2 seasons. He finishes a wide receiver 26 in .5 PPR, and the wide receiver 18 in 0.5 PPR in his first 2 seasons. So he's progressively getting better, and he's proving his worth as a first-round pick in the NFL. Now, as explained before with Matty Ice, Atlanta's going to be behind in games. They're going to pass the ball at a top 5 rate in the league. Now, this gives Calvin Ridley plenty of opportunity. I know there's Julio Jones, but you have to understand that wide receiver 2s can be super fantasy relevant in offenses like this that have all these targets to go around. So Julio will get his, and that's fine. Calvin Ridley is going to get his own share of the pie. Now, they have the most vacated targets in the league with 258. This is because Mohamed Sanu is gone, Devontae Freeman is gone, and Austin Hooper are gone. Now, Hayden Hurst and Todd Gurley should take most of the 167 targets that Hooper and Freeman left behind, but everything else is probably going to go to Calvin Ridley, and even a little bit of that, or hold on, it's a little bit bold to say all of it is going to Calvin Ridley, but he's going to see a good share of that, because Mohamed Sanu took a lot of targets from him. Now, when you look at the splits in 2019, it's pretty crazy. When Sanu got traded to the Patriots, that's great because we got to see what the offense looked like without Mohamed Sanu. In the 6 games without Mohamed Sanu, Ridley was averaging 2 more targets per game. He was averaging like 4 more half PPR points per game, and he was the wide receiver 9 in those last 6 games. He was on pace for 91 catches, 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He would have been the wide receiver 6 over a full 16 games with that pace. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the wide receiver 6, but if that is what he's producing without Mohamed Sanu, and you're getting him at wide receiver 17, in my opinion, his floor is probably wide receiver 17. He finished as wide receiver 18 last year, and that was with half the games without Mohamed Sanu. If you get a full slate without Mohamed Sanu, I think Ridley's going to smash this year. I like him as a low-end wide receiver 1, and I don't think Russell Gage poses that same threat that Sanu did. Russell Gage, he's a fine slot receiver. Or I wouldn't even say slot, fine. He's probably a below-average slot receiver. He's going to get a few targets, but he was active in those games in those last 6, and it was clear that Ridley was getting targets funneled from him that used to go to Sanu. Ridley's target share last year was 17.7%, and it should jump into that 20% plus range this year with over 650 targets to go around. So that's upwards of 140 targets, 145 targets. He's going to benefit from those negative game scripts. He's going to get a lot of targets, and expect Calvin Ridley to not only not bust your fantasy teams, but to challenge for wide receiver 1 numbers, man. All right, if you made it this far, man, I appreciate it. Go down below, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you got any video ideas coming up. Right now, I got part 2 for running back breakouts, tight end breakouts, part 2. And look out for UFC 252 breakdown. We got Daniel Cormier versus Stipe. The trilogy fight is going to be next Saturday. That should be out by Thursday with my picks. It's going to be on Twitter. We went positive 1.7 units in the last one. Not too bad, but make sure you follow me at @RonStewart_ to get those picks, man. And as always, made it this far. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one.